create lasting impact. And today I have my special guest, helping entrepreneurial men rise conscious families, create impact and local in their local community, and to build a legacy which outlasts them. And no other than Mr. Christopher Bauer.
Thank you, Daniel.
Welcome, Mr. Christopher on Entrepreneurship 101. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
The whole Leaving Legacy Live, which ties into the Legacy Collaborative, it's a 8-session, 22-hour live training for entrepreneurial men on creating a bigger impact. I also go into vetting charities and just finding out ways how they can use their money to actually create betterment without having the problem of giving to charities and the charities taking a large sum for administrative fees.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Christopher. Thank you. And today let's talk about helping entrepreneurial men raise conscious families, create impact to their local community, and build a legacy which outlasts them. So you focus on helping entrepreneurial men rise conscious families to create a legacy. These three pillars are connected, but they also complete for time, energy, and attention. How you help men who's succeeding in one area realize he's failing in another without making him defensive.
Well, my approach, you could say, is more through my own processes of learning, self education, where I've condensed over a decade of knowledge, just figuring out stuff that didn't work, figuring out other ways that should be working, but problems in the world are not being addressed. And then I just, in order to really create the big movement, we need more men coming together to create it, to work together to address the problems. And the entrepreneurial approach is the way we should be going at it, instead of having the bureaucratic or using other in-system solutions which only perpetuate the problem.
Interesting, Mr. Christopher. The phrase conscious families means different thing and different people. In your work, what does conscious in parenting and partnership actually look like on Tuesday morning when the kids are fighting and there's a business crisis?
I would say more the conscious families is looking at the deeper understanding of what's going on, what could be playing into, say, those conflict situations, looking into what we can do to raise the consciousness of the families, and looking how it would be ways to mitigate the problems and work on creating better systems so we have less of those going forward. I mean, for the business problems, the conscious approach would be looking at what other external factors would be creating them, and then addressing them alongside the internal, depending on the scope of the issue itself. I mean, overall consciousness, it's getting people out of the, hey, I'm just surviving, or my business is struggling, to the point where they can actually do more, they can give back more, and they can actually create more change, to actually create the better world that they want to see.
Hmm, interesting, Mr. Christopher. Interesting indeed. Entrepreneurial men are often celebrated for their drive, their ambition, their willingness to sacrifice for success. But the same drive can destroy families. How do you help men distinguish between the ambition that serves his legacy and the ambition to undermine it?
That's finding the balance, because if they're too ambitious, they're too material focused. I mean, most of those men are actually adverse to families. I'm looking for the men who have the children, or who are wanting to have children, and then going from like that perspective, open to actually wanting to do more, open to addressing problems, because there is a massive divide of, yes, they want to get ahead, they want to have the fast cars, they want to have the big houses, they want all the material success, but at what cost? They lose their humility, they lose their integrity, they lose, you know, the compassion, the willingness to give back to others, because it's all, they put themselves so high on a pedestal.
Legacy that outlaws them, not just wealth, but meaning. When you see what successful entrepreneur and ask about legacy, what is the most common answer you hear? What is the answer you hope they eventually find?
The most common answer is everybody seems to go to financial. They want to do generational wealth. They want to go that way. They want to copy the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the people who set up the financial empires, the financial systems. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, that is a factor, but that shouldn't be the primary focus. The legacy itself should be more to do about the local community, to address problems on that aspect, and to mitigate future problems by addressing the root causes. Whereas having the financial safety net, yes, it needs to be there, but you need less of a safety net if there's less problems in your community or in your nation that you need to fall back on. Like, why can't we go to the, why can't we address the problem at the core instead
Hmm.
of going and dancing around it? Like, I mean, the analogy for that would be, you have a pipe leaking, you're the guy mopping the floor to address those problems instead of fixing the primary leak. Like, and it seems to be there's a lot more people who would rather mop the floor than actually replace the pipe and fix the actual root cause.
Very well said, Mr. Christopher. Many entrepreneurial men were raised with a version of masculinity that says provide, protect, don't complain, don't ask for help. How does conditioning show up in their families? And what was the crack inside them before they can lead differently?
I mean, some of those aspects are not bad, being the provider, being the protector, but there's also like, you have to go and be able to do, you have your family unit, you have to also look at your community as almost, I won't go to the point of saying an extension, but other people to collaborate with, other people to work with, so that you can address issues. Beyond that, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean,
Certainly. Definitely, yes. And
and
Mr. Christopher, you've asking men to be present fathers and present leaders simultaneously. But present can be scheduled like a meeting. How do you help a man who's never learned to present actually show up when it matters most?
that would be more one of the modules in the live training, where you're going and doing an introspective approach. You have to understand yourself more. You have to go within before you can go without the help, and be more present in the lives of those around you and your community. Like that, you got to
Mhm.
know your own issues, you got to know your own strengths, and you got to play into them, and you got to address parts of yourself that you might not want to face in order to really grow and create the impact you want.
Certainly. Entrepreneurial men often measure everything revenue, growth, metrics, but family and legacy resist measurement. How do you help someone who lives by numbers trust what can be counted?
That would be, honestly, it's a definitely an objection that needs to be worked to be overcome smoother. But I would say those metrics, they only go so far. Like, you can be worth $100 million, but then in a century, like, that might be meaningless. I mean, then the other perspective is, look at what happened to the Weimar Republic, the Hungarian pengo, the other currencies, where they got debased to the point they were $100 trillion notes. You could be the average person with $100 trillion note in your wallet. That was worthless or next to worthless. Like, I look at going, what can you do that can impact, like, let's address real world problems that will be remembered, that will go further, because the more materialistic side, the financial side, there's a hard stop. Like it only goes so far, and your name kind of stops at that point.
Mm, yes, interesting indeed. You're working with men who are used to being the smartest person in the room. How do you create a space where they can admit they don't know, they are failing, or they scared without losing the respect they need to feel safe?
I mean, that's where the openness, but I mean, we have the privacy component of the community, and I will do one-on-ones with those who are willing to who want to go through the life training with me, where we can go in more in depth into how they want to create the impact.
Mhm.
Overall, I mean, there has to be a degree of openness, and at the same time, a willingness to contribute. Because if they have that, I don't want to speak up, or I don't want to open up. If you can't do that, you're not really gonna. You won't find the benefit of being in there with other men who are willing to open up and say more in order to create more.
Mhm. Well said. Mr. Christopher, conscious fatherhood requires emotional availability, the ability to sit with a child's pain without fixing it, to listen without solving. For a man whose entire identity is built on fixing and solving, what does it feel like the first time he just says?
He takes emotional, like, vulnerability. It could be a large step, like a difficult step for many to get there, because it is, in a way, due to society, it's been shunned, it's been pushed aside, saying you're weak. But showing that it's more of a strength, it's more that you're willing to connect with others on a deeper level, and you can use that in turn to make more impact. You can use that to help more people, because they will understand you better, instead of just going and focusing on stuff that will be way less significant.
Certainly. And entrepreneurial marriages faces unique pressures, financial volatility, time scarcity, and layering of work and home. What is the most common marriage killer you see in entrepreneurial couples, and what does one make it do differently?
That, I mean, you could say the time commitment for the entrepreneur, because there's days where you're having to run much longer, and you can't, like, there is no balance for the entrepreneurial lifestyle, like, because you have days where you're doing way more. Other days you have to step back a little bit, but you can't fully disconnect. I mean, it's finding somebody who understands. I mean, as Alex Ramosi almost put it, when you marry an entrepreneur, you're marrying also their businesses. You're getting involved with all what they've got building, and getting somebody on that level earlier on, so you don't run into the problems later on.
Children of entrepreneurs often grow up with material abundance but emotional scarcity. What do these children tell you in adulthood about what they actually needed, and what do you wish their fathers had known?
I mean, that would be going more to the conscious parenting, and just, again, it's finding. I would go and try to find if there is a semblance of finding balance in there for how you're going to raise the kids, or not. Like, they're better to learn. They're better to go through the challenges of someone who'd be more middle class, before, instead of getting everything given to them, because they will learn, they'll be able to create more. Like, I've heard also stories of people who were lucky enough to come from wealthy families who have trust funds, and it's more like, it's harder for them to build anything, to have a name for them, to carry a legacy, if they've already got everything handed to them on a silver platter.
You're helping men build families that are conscious. Right, Mr. Christopher? What does conscious family dinner look like? What does conscious reaction to a teenager's rebellion look like? Give me a picture of what this actually looks like in practice.
The way I would see a conscious family, it'd be a family that would be open to communicate about the good and the bad, a family that would be willing to work together to build together. Like if the kids are struggling, they are not feeling um not pressured, but they're not feeling unwelcome to speak up, that they're encouraged to speak up, to talk about where they need help in their life. And the parents are willing to take the time necessary in order to address those issues. It's more of looking at where you're currently at and where they want to go and helping them achieve their goals. If they don't have the direction, it's giving them the ideas, letting them try different things so they can find their direction, and then playing into that. I would, it's the communicative, it's the introspective, it's, there's a lot of moving pieces to that, honestly, but you have to, once you understand them all, you can actually apply it, and then it should be a lot more open, friendly, collaborative, even like everybody is self-supportive of each other so we can grow, the family can grow together, and everybody wins.
Everybody wins. Well, we like that, Mr. Christopher. And local community impact for a busy entrepreneur. This can feel like one of more thing on the plate. How do you help someone see community not as obligation but essential part of their own thriving?
The local community impact, most people or most entrepreneurs, it seems to be as soon as they have enough money that where they start wanting to donate, they immediately go philanthropy or charity without actually looking at, will they ever actually, the charity or the philanthropy, that route, will they ever actually address the root cause? And most of the answer they don't want to hear is no, because if the charity or the philanthropist, where they're donating, they address the problem, the charity ceases to exist. So the approach I would rather go is, let's actually just address the problems. It has been done. It's been done in multiple either towns or other countries. Yes, it might mean there's going to be less charities, but then we can actually start building out by, once we've addressed the local problems, then we can start working like town to town, city to city, province or state to state level, and then eventually the national level. You got to start from the small and work your way out to the nation. You can't go from the nation the other way because there's too much red tape, too many bureaucratic lines that need to be dealt with that just drain money, cause more problems.
Very well said, Mr. Christopher. When you work with a man who's successfully but empty, who's built empire and lost his family, his health, his friends, what do you say to him? Is it pity? Is it judgment? Or it might actually reach him?
The question is, when you meet, could you repeat that again, please?
Yes, when you work with a man who's successfully but empty, who's built an empire and lost his family, his wealth, his friends, what do you say to him? Is it pity? Is it judgment? But might actually reach him?
For someone who's built and then lost everything, I would be looking at more at the approach of going, yes, you need to learn from your mistakes in order to build from the ashes, but I would look at them as somebody, if they're willing to learn, if they're willing to apply new methods, they can get out of that and they can rebuild. It's just, my question to them is going, if you've done it once, are you willing to do it again? And if you are willing to do it again, are you willing to maybe approach it from a different angle so you don't crash and burn like Icarus by getting too close to the sun?
Very well said. You're a part of a growing movement redefining what it means to be a successful man, not just financially, but as a father, partner, citizen. What gives you hope for this shift? Is it actually happening, and what makes you doubt it?
I'm looking more at the way people are responding, how conversations are shifting. Like, it's no longer about the vanity metrics, it's no longer about having massive followings. It's more about like real, authentic, genuine people who are wanting to actually make a difference. There's more and more people like me who are going their own way, creating something that will in the end create more impact or have communities of like minds who want to make a difference. Like, it's less so, flaunting what was success years ago to where it is, let's actually better everything. Like, I do see it still as a challenge to reach more and more people, because you're dealing with the old mindset versus the newer mindset. But there are people who are coming over in time. It's just, I wish the trickle would become a torrent, and I wish more people would see that where the world is going, it's not exactly where those who control the media, the finances, they say it's going that direction, but no, the people are pulling it the other direction. And we know we can have a better world by working together.
And Mr. Christopher, to wrap up our discussion for today, at the very end of man's life, after business are sold or passed on, after children are raised, after community has been touched by his presence, what do you hope they feel when they look back? Now they build, but he become, or how he helped others become because of he finally understood what success actually requires.
I mean, for the future generations, looking back on someone who has created a legacy, who has created the community change, I would be looking back at more, the gratefulness, the thankfulness that somebody actually wanted to make a difference. Somebody wanted to address the problems. Because most of the time, the problems are not addressed, they're ignored, and you go for the little issues instead of the root cause. And if we can go with that approach and actually start doing what needs to be done, the world will be way different. We'll have way more positive change, and there'll be way less suffering.
Positive change indeed. So, Mr. Christopher, can you please invite the listeners to support your business or anything you want to promote on Entrepreneurship 101?
They can find me on LinkedIn, which is LinkedIn/Christopher Bauer. I have my free community, which is the website, which is open as the background Legacy Collaborative on school.com, which entrepreneurial men, if you're interested, you can apply to join there. I also have my website, which is leavinglegacylive.com, where they can find more info on the live training. It also links back to the Legacy Collaborative community.
Yes, indeed. People, let's support Mr. Christopher Bauer because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering business like this to rise. So, Mr. Christopher, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Monica, people, see you soon.